Bonnie Anderson was a pretty uninspired student going into the seventh grade. She was headed down an educational dead end until she discovered music. That's when she found her mojo. And now, she's passing that love of music along to her students in the Judson School District. She's here to explain how good mojo and lots of marimbas make better students. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Bonnie Anderson discovered music in seventh grade and has been pursuing it ever since. She launched her teaching career in the Splendora ISD after graduating from the University of North Texas. 25 years later, she's teaching music to more than 400 students every week in the Judson School District. She wants music to be a catalyst for students to be inspired and feel positive self-worth, just as it has been for her. In 2018, the HEB Excellence in Education program gave her its Lifetime Achievement Award for teaching. She's also been chosen from among 4,500 music teachers across the country as a finalist in the Grammy Music Educator of the Year. The high-energy marimba program she founded has performed at events and venues across Texas and even appeared at Carnegie Hall. So, Bonnie, thanks for joining me. I'm doing a little field work today. I don't usually work out in the field like this, but I'm glad to do it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Tell me the story about Mojo Rimba. It's a great story, but I want to hear it again.
Well, Mojo Rimba is the name of my performing group, and it's also the name of my nonprofit organization. And the performing group got started because my students in fifth grade, I had one student in particular, he was graduating, and he didn't want to stop playing marimbas. He said, I really don't want to be done with your classes. And so I started a group after school just because of him, and invited some other kids that were in his age group. And that group has stuck with me, and now a lot of them are in my top performing group, Mojo Rimba, and a lot of them are in high school, although that group has kids all the way down to sixth grade in it. So that's how the performing group got started.
Right.
And the nonprofit got started because I was trying to get a grant, and I needed a nonprofit to funnel the money through.
Right.
And most people use their PTO to do that sort of thing, but ours, their books were a mess, and so I knew that there was no way they were going to give the money to them. So I started my own. And the other thing is that I was kind of tired of the red tape that's required for school districts to use approved vendors. And so with the nonprofit, I could spend money through different vendors that had better quality equipment at a lower price.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the double-edged sword for a nonprofit organization is you don't have a lot of resources, but you need to be able to direct the resources very precisely.
Yes.
I feel your pain. I'm there. So the program, the Mojo Rimba nonprofit and the performing program has been very successful. It's grown a lot since you founded it. How many schools are you in now?
Well, I've got kids from I think about, oh my goodness, about 8 different schools in that top performing group.
Okay. So
including homeschool.
Oh, all right. Yeah, sure. Why not? There had to be, for you to be a music teacher, and especially above and beyond the regular classroom stuff, the nonprofit you started, there has to be a serious love of music deep down inside you. Where did that come from? Where did you get that?
Well, my start in music came when I was in elementary school. I was taking baton twirling lessons, and I didn't like having to practice the baton at home. So I asked my mom to put me in piano, not knowing the required at-home practice for piano. But
Right.
I just quickly fell in love, and I would sing at the top of my lungs and play any music I could get my hands on.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so that's where it kind of got its start.
And what about teaching? How did you decide to become a teacher?
Well, that's a very interesting story because when I was in second grade, I had a teacher that clearly did not like me. And she even had a cubicle built where I had walls. All I could see was walls on three sides of me. And so I was separated from the other students pretty much the whole year. It was embarrassing, demoralizing, and to tie it back into music a little bit, I remember we were doing a music program and she took me aside and complimented my singing. And that was, to me, I felt like that was the first hint of anything positive from her. So I started singing louder because I wanted to make her even prouder of me.
Right,
And
sure.
then she took me off and yelled at me. And so it was like right then that I decided I wanted to be a teacher because I wanted to be a nice one.
Right. Yeah, it's about as bad a teacher interaction experience as you could have about.
Yeah.
So so now, and given that you are deeply musical and dedicated to teaching, I'm gonna take you down both those roads. Use you as my expert in the arts and education. So you've had years of seeing how the arts relate to education, how being in a music class impacts other educational fields. Does involvement in the arts make someone a better student?
Well, it certainly did for me. And I know it does for my students. In my case, I was, because of that second grade teacher, I just went downhill from second grade. And it wasn't until I got involved in band class and I realized I was good at something because I was a little bit better than most of the kids in the class. It wasn't until I did that that I started realizing, oh, hard work equals rewards. And
Right?
all of a sudden, I went from C's and D's to getting straight A's.
Nice.
And I've seen that in my students as well. Um, and there's so much scientific research that backs up the fact that it helps the development of a child's brain being involved in performing arts. So I think it clearly is a help in other areas of education.
Okay. All right. Some teachers, and I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. You're participating in Bear Fest this year as a nonprofit.
Correct.
You're working with one of the high schools that are creating your media for the festival. But some of I want to get a teacher's perspective on what I'm hearing from some of the teachers that are bringing teams to Bear Fest. That they tell me stories about seeing their students engage in the creative process. In your case, it's making music. In their case, it's making videos and graphic designs. They see as their students engage in that process that they develop a new self-confidence, a new outgoing ability to communicate with other people. They say they see them blossom just through the course of creating something artistic. Do you see that? Have you seen students go through that process?
Yes, they learn way much more than music. For example, for any of my marimba groups, in order to be successful, I really instill in them the fact that if every member of the group does not feel valued, the group's not going to be successful. So they really learn teamwork, and the aspects of teamwork they will learn is respect, even for people they don't like, and to make sure that everybody feels important in the group. For example, in a group I just started, there was a girl that most kids kind of thought she was weird, and so they all avoided her. And I've taught them that they need to include her. They don't have to, grab her and hang out with her like their best friend all the time. They need to include her. And they've started including her, and now she attends rehearsals more regularly. And so the teamwork, I think, is a very important thing that they're learning out of the process. Also, just the ability to get up and perform. I have one student this year who he said he didn't want to be in the group because he was too scared to go perform. And so I said, well, I'll put you in the back of the group. He said, okay. Then he walked away. Then he came back from the nurse's office after just having a panic attack and told
Oh,
me, I
no.
can't do it. And so I said, how about this? You stay in the group, you come to the performances, but I will never force you to get on stage. And he said, okay. And we've had 2 performances so far, and he performed in both of them. So I've seen my students just have no problem getting in front of people and doing anything. And
Okay.
that's going to be a very important skill in the workforce.
Sure. Sure. The artistic component of BearFest is the most obvious. The outcome of the festival is nonprofits receive the media to use in their outreach programs. But the educational component, from my perspective, and I expect from yours as well, is just as important. The students are participating in the festival. They're immersed in a couple of things. First, there's the media production element. They're learning how to run a camera. They're learning how to use graphic design software. But there's also the soft skills, what people refer to as soft skills, the communications and resource management and time management and that sort of thing. We're immersing them in a situation where they have to do that. You have to learn how to manage your time, and that's not what they set out to do, but it's a lesson they learn in the course of being immersed in a project where they have to do that. And from my perspective, I am in no way a musician, but I would think creating music is about as immersive as it gets. You're deeply involved in what you're doing. So I'd like to get your take on the value of experiential learning. That's where that whole question was leaning to. That you go in with one objective, but you're learning other things as you work towards that objective. Does learning in the field have any value as opposed to learning in a classroom?
Learning in the field.
What do you mentioned that your kids learn performing skills. There's playing the notes, and then there's performing.
Right. Yes, they learn so much more than music. And I think the one thing to consider is that I'm not looking for these students to grow up to be musicians or music teachers or things like that. If they do, that's great, and I'm thrilled and excited for them. But I just want to give them something that's going to be part of their lives for the rest of their lives. And when you see, like, I see a lot of studies that show that they like doctors to have experience with music, to perform. A lot of doctors are good musicians as well. For some reason, that seems to go hand in hand. So I think that the experience in the music and the creating is going to be an absolute benefit in anything else that they do. It's going to be part of their lives. It's going to teach them to look at things from different perspectives. And so there is a value in it. And the value of being in my music group is not to grow up and become a musician, but to use the skills that they have from there in the other areas of their life.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I'm realistic that 99% of the kids who participate in BearFest are not going to go into the media. They're not going to be producers. They'll go into other careers, but they will learn skills and abilities through the course of going through the festival that can apply to any field. You're going to use resource allocation no matter what career you go into. And I very much agree with what you're saying about that you're learning things without realizing you're learning things that apply to the whole world, to the adult world. Well, thank you.
Another interesting.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
On a little side note, there's a lot of studies that show that kids who are involved in performing music that have dyslexia, for some reason, dyslexic kids have problems with focusing outside noises, but learning to play an instrument helps them focus outside noises. So that would just be another example of a benefit that's not directly musical that applies outside their life.
And it makes perfect sense. They're focusing on the sound they're making rather than all the other sounds that are going on around them. That makes perfect sense. Absolutely makes sense. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for being part of the festival. I'm looking forward to seeing what you and your team are gonna create, because I think that's a great story.
I look forward to working with the media team. I'm excited about it.
It's going to be fun.
All right.
All right. Thanks again. Take care.